Barakatah Yahawah, BaHa YAHAWASHI, BaHa RAWCHAA QADASH. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Concubines. And pretty much this lesson is inspired by a comment, or actually a question that was posed, or a comment that was posed as a question on this video, Paul Cursor, You're a Real Demon, / various topics. And the comment came by way of this brother here, servant for YAHAWASHI. And he says, Shalom Apostle, can you please do a breakdown on Isaiah 4:1? Will the women be of the other nations because they're both, they're brothers, or they are brothers that say it is a sin to have Gentile women for wives or concubines, THAWADAH. And the thing is, these guys are emotional. No, not this brother in particular. The other guys that say that, they're emotional. They don't believe in the scriptures. And the scriptures tell you about this. There's many examples all throughout the Bible, that tells you about concubines, tells you about handmaids. It tells you about women of the other nations, tells you about great men, that had these concubines. But still, they're saying that it's not lawful for brothers to have Gentile women. The problem is you can't accept a woman of another nation the same way you would accept the Israelite women, because these women, when you deal with them, you start to get feelings for them, and what happens is you start to follow their ways, their customs, their gods, so on and so forth. And this is why King Solomon fell, because it said that he clave to them in love. You see? So when you have a woman of another nation, she's just there for, to bear children, just as, some fun activities. And I know, some so-called brothers out there, they get emotional about that, because they've been, mentally used to this Western hemisphere. Here it is, they know that they're Israelites, they call themselves Israelites, they tell you to keep the law, they read the scriptures, and they still have no concept of what the scriptures say going back to the East. As men having wives, having concubines, having handmaids, so on and so forth. And the sisters, they get all emotional because they've been brainwashed by the Western side of this world, where it tells you that a man can only have one woman and a woman can only have one man. Now, the part about the woman only having one man, that is true. But the part about the man having more than one, only having one woman, that's false, because a man can have as many women as he wants, as long as the women that he's dealing with do not have another man. That's the only thing that's forbidden. A woman that is married to another man, because that is adultery. Now, when you deal with the woman, when you deal with the word concubine, and I told the brother, Lord's will, I'll do a lesson on it. When you deal with the word concubine, it says in polygamous societies. Now, the word polygamous, when you break it down, poly is many, and gam or gamos or gummy represents marriage, many marriages. It's like you have hypergamy, which is to marry the highest you can go up. You have monogamy, which is one marriage. Mono means single marriage, one man and one woman. And the scriptures, the Israelites were polygamous. When you go to the East now, not the West, because the West is totally backwards. When you go to the East and you go to all those different regions and all of these different peoples, these different nations from the past, they all, for the most part, they all, either all of them or for the most part, they all practice something called polygamy, because this is a custom of the East, where men were afforded more than one woman, for the purpose of bringing forth children. And some of those women that were concubines were like slaves, where they would do the chores, and then when the master wanted to get busy, then he would deal with her. So it says a woman who lives with a man but has lower status than his wife or wives, and this is where it's supposed to be at. They have a lower status than the wife. They are not to be equal with the wife because they are of another nation, and they will never have equality with the wife. So it goes down here. It says, what is the purpose of concubine? The origins for a male to hold a concubine were for sexual pleasure and to ensure numerous children. And women get all upset. Oh, you just treat me like a sex object. What the hell do you think you were created for? Why do you think you have breasts? Why do you think your body is shaped the way it is? Why do you think you have a vagina? Why do you think the mamatan, which is the Hebrew way of saying penis, 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 penis. Don't say that word in my house. Inside joke. Why do you think the penis fits in the vagina? Because that's what a woman was created for pleasure. Just like she gets pleasure from her husband, her man. Oh, you treat me like a sex. What the hell do you think? If you get together with a woman, a man and a woman get together, they see each other for the first time. What do you think, is going on in their minds? Damn, she looked good as hell. And wow, he looks real good, They're attracted to each other sexually. All right? There's a sexual attraction there. And that's what a man and a woman were created for. This is why man is set up the way he is and woman is set up the way she is. There is a attraction that you're not getting with a woman, because I want to explore her mind to see, how deep her mind is. No, a woman don't care about what's in the man's mind either. She looks at him, she's usually physically attracted to him, and she wants to get with him. And this society, of course, it's been flipped to where a woman wants a man that can provide for them no matter what they look like. But that was the job of a man, to provide for the woman, for their children. So it says mostly concubines serve to satisfy sexual pleasure, since any children that resulted from a mistress was considered illegitimate, and unless allowed by their father, had no rights of inheritance. And that is true to a certain degree, because this is what because you had the story, I believe that was either Jephthah, if I'm not mistaken. His mother was a harlot, and his brothers didn't want him to be a part of the inheritance, but he is still an Israelite. You see? And the thing is, if you have a woman, and you had your wife, children, you had concubines, you had children with them, the children of the married woman, they would get inheritance before the other woman, but they were still Israelites. But you have this mentality out here in the West that's all convoluted. So we look on the word concubine in the etymon line. This is a paramour, which a paramour, I had looked it up. I believe it's, matter of fact, let's look it up real quick. I looked it up yesterday, but, I don't have the greatest memory in the world. So sometimes I forget unless the spirit, come on, man. Paramour. It says a love, especially the illicit partner of a married person, right, which is a concubine. All right. A woman who cohabits with a man without being married to him. Also in reference to Hebrew, Greek, Roman, and other civilizations where the position was recognized by law. And this position here of a concubine is recognized by our law because it's written within the pages of the laws. There are scriptures that speak about our forefathers having concubines. There are scriptures that speak about what you would do if you have women of other nations and you had a desire to them, what you would have to go through, the process you would have to go through in order to deal with them. It says a wife of inferior condition, a secondary wife, from Latin concubina, feminine, concubinus, masculine, one who lives unmarried with a married man or woman. Usually the concubine, because with the man, she was his concubine, his sex object. With the woman, she was a handmaid. Usually the concubine was of a lower social order, but the institution, though below matrimonium, was less reproachful than adulterium or stuprum, which is adultery. The word itself is from concubere, to lie with. Con is with, and cumbere is to lie. To lie together, to cohabit, from assimilated form of com, with, together, see con, kubari, to lie down. So to lie with, and that's what the concubine was for. Another term is handmaid, is a female servant, and she pretty much served the same purpose as a concubine. She would be a servant, she would be a concubine. She would give pleasure to the man, she would serve the woman, the children, and all of that. She would pop out babies, and all of those babies were Israelites. Because not one of you out there, because you guys that talk about, if you have an Israelite man and a heathen mother, then you are a mamzer, which means a bastard, a mamzar. All right, and none of you can show any of the 12 tribes coming out, the 12 tribes, the patriarchs of the nation of Israel. None of you can show that those 12 children came out of Israelite women. Because they didn't. For you clowns out there talk about, if you deal with another woman of another nation, then you're a mamzer. Fuck out of here. All right, so now that we got that out of the way, and you could go back and look at all these things up so you can get it for yourself. Genesis 22 and 20, this is the first time the word concubine appears in the scriptures, a little further down. I started at the 20th verse because this is dealing with Abraham and dealing with the line that came out, because you had Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. All right, and Nahor and Haran died, but they both had children, and their children's children. They inhabited and stayed in the land known as Syria. The place was named Haran or Haran in the Hebrew. And it was named after Abraham's brother who had died. And there was a community of them there. All right, even though they weren't Israelites, but they were of that chosen line. Just like Abraham was not an Israelite, but he was of that chosen line, coming from Noah to Shem to Arphaxad, all the way down the line till they came to Abraham. All right. And those siblings of his were also part of that, because they all came out of Terah, which was the father of Abraham. And that's why the Lord said to deal with them. All right. Even though they were not Israelites. Dig it? Got it? Good. Verse 23, and Bethuel begat Rebekah. Right, Bethuel was Nahor. He was one of Nahor's sons. And Bethuel begat Rebekah, who was the wife of Isaac, eventually became the wife of Isaac. These 8 Milcah did bear to Nahor, Abraham's brother. All right. It says, and his concubine, meaning Bethuel's concubine, whose name was Reumah, she bare also Teba and Gahan and Thahash and Maacah. So the history of concubinage goes all the way back to the scriptures. So let's go to the word concubine. And Bethuel begat, okay, did I go to the wrong precept? Yes, I did. Clicked the wrong one. And his concubine. So we have the word concubine, which you have the Hebrew word payalagash. Payalagash, concubine. Paramour, concubine, paramour. Doesn't say too much, but we know that this is a woman that was like a sex object for the man, which would also bear children. And typically, they are women of other nations. Well, they are women of other nations because you're not supposed to really have, you know, the woman of the nation of Israel, once you get with them, that's your wife. You know? Bottom line. All right, so now that we got that out the way, like I said, this is the first time Genesis 22 and 24 where the word concubine appears. As we move on, we have another term which we dealt with, which is the word handmaid. You have a movie that came out in, I believe that was 1990, if I'm not mistaken. The Handmaid's Tale. It was a novel that was published in 1985, but I believe the movie came out in 1990. Which I don't see it here because they have what's called, they did a series on it, which I never watched the series. This is the series right here. So you go look it up. I believe that was 1990. You know, it was based off of a novel again. You know, and it tells you what it was all about when you watch the movie. And the movie was fertile women were not either put to death or sent to the colonies to work. The only women that were sent to colonies to work were the ones that had diseases or the ones that could not bear children. The ones that could bear children, they made them handmaids, and they would go around to the different locations where you had, you know, these upper class, so to speak, Edomites that their women could not bear children, and they would have them, and these women would bear children for them. As it says, what makes a woman a handmaid? Role in society. In Gilead, this is dealing with the actual movie, because there was a part in the movie where part of the so-called United States, you know, was called the Republic of Gilead. Handmaids are fertile women who are supposed to be impregnated by commanders or angels. I don't know what the hell that's all about. Whose wives are infertile, thus providing them with children. Only high-ranking men, such as commanders, are allowed to have a handmaid assigned to them. And this is according to the movie. All right, it says, why do the wives need handmaids? It is implied that some wives are capable of bearing children, but most are older women and thus have difficulty conceiving, or their husbands are infertile, which is also hampered by widespread infertility. As a result, wives have to share their husbands with handmaids in order to get a child. All right, and that was the purpose of a handmaid. She was the servant of the woman, and she also provided sexual pleasures to the man. And it was a custom that every time, you know, a man would give his daughter in marriage to another man, he would also send her off with a handmaid. As we see the example of Laban, which was Rachel and Leah's father. He gave them what? Concubines. I'm sorry, he gave them handmaids. You know, and from those four women, Rachel and Leah, and the two handmaids, Zilpah and Bilhah, you had the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel born from them, from those four women. And neither one of them was an Israelite. So does that make those children all mamzers? For you clowns out there that talk about if you have a heathen mother, you're a mamzer. All right, so let's move on. Genesis 16:1. And this is the first time that the word handmaid appears in the scriptures. Now Sarai, Now, the name Sarai was changed to Sarah. Sarai, when you break it down, is Sharayah, because the way that you say prince is Shar, masculine. The way you say princess is Sharah, with a ha at the end, Sharah. So Sharayah is my princess. So the Lord changed Sarai's name from Sharayah, my princess, which is Abraham's princess, to Sharah, princess. Okay? And Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children. And she had an handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. When we go to the word handmaid, the word there is shapakha. And it says maid, maid servant, slave girl, maid servant, as belonging to a mistress, of address, speaker, humility. All right, let's see. Feminine form from an unused root, meaning to spread out as a family. Yeah, because that's what they would do. They would actually be an extension of that family, because they would bring forth children for the man and for the mistress, or for the woman. Yeah, the mistress, which is the way mistress is the way of saying master in a feminine way. A female slave as a member of the household. Bond, handmaid, servant, wench, bondwoman, woman servant. Here it says Masha Pacha, families, kindred, kinds. All right. So that's the definition of concubine, and that was the definition of handmaid. So we dealt with handmaid and concubine. Concubine is with lying. Handmaid is a servant, an extension of your family, because those children are also your family. But the inheritance would go to the one that was a part of the wife, but also the ones that were not a part of the wife would also get an inheritance. They would get, gifts, because they were also a part of that line. Otherwise, there would be no Israelites, because the only Israelite would be Jacob. There would be no other Israelites. According to these guys, well, if your mother's a heathen, then you're a mamzer. So how come Jacob's 12 sons were Israelites? How come they were known as Israelites? The Apostle Paul came from that line. Didn't he say he was of the tribe of Benjamin? Didn't he say he was an Israelite of the tribe of Benjamin? See, these guys don't think before they start popping that bullshit. Anyways, let's see what else we got here. And Sarai said unto Abram, Behold, now the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid, and it may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abraham hearkened to the voice of Sarai, and Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband, Abram, to be his wife. And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived, she got pregnant. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. And this is where the child Ishmael came out of, which Ishmael is the father of the so-called Arab people today. They call him Arab. The word Arab means from the Hebrew Arab, which means mixed. Because when you look at them, they're a mixture of men. You have Midianites among them. You have Syrians and Assyrians. They're a lot of times they don't distinguish when they say the word Arab. That's why you have to distinguish between Ishmael, the Ishmaelites, and some of the other nations that are among them, and they look somewhat similar in certain cases. All right, so that's that on that. Let's move on to the next one. This is Genesis 25:1. Now we're dealing with Abraham and the children that he had from these women, these concubines. It says, Then Abraham took a wife, and her name was Keturah. All right. And when he took Keturah, he had 6 children with Keturah. All right. When we jump to the 5th verse, it says, And Abraham gave all that he had unto Isaac. Why? Because he was the heir. He was a son of the promise. That was the difference. Now, in the case of any Israelite that came out of the loins of Jacob, all of them will receive the inheritance, but it would go according to the firstborn. The firstborn would get the lion's share of the inheritance. The other ones would get stuff, but the firstborn. That's why there's a law where if you had 2 wives, this is in the law, you could only have 1 wife. But then and keep the law, though, the laws, the statutes, the commandments. But if you keep the law and you're telling men that they could only have 1 wife, then what about the scripture in the law where it says that if you have 2 wives, one hated and the other one loved, and the one that's hated has the child first, then the one that's loved, her child can't take over the inheritance of the firstborn. You see? So it says, but unto the sons of the concubines, because although in the first verse it says that Keturah was Abraham's wife, he took her to wife, meaning he popped her a couple of times. Inside joke. She was also a concubine. All right, and this is going to be key when we go to the law. All right, so it says, but unto the sons of the concubines which Abraham had, Abraham gave gifts. Right, he gave them gifts because they were still his sons, and sent them away from Isaac his son while he yet lived eastward unto the east country. Right, why? Because at this time the inheritance and the line was to go to Isaac. The Lord promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's the only reason why he sent them separately, even though they were all Abraham's sons. But those sons were not a part of the promise. Even the Apostle Paul used that, because he used the situation where Sarah said to Abraham, send her away from me, for the bondwoman and her son shall not be heir with my son, because Isaac was the seed of the promise. Now in the case of the other Israelites that came out of the loins of Jacob, they're all a part of that, whether they had women that were Israelites or whether they had women that were heathen. All of those children are Israelites. It doesn't go according to the mother. It doesn't go according to what the child looks like. It goes according to the seed of the father. Okay, so that's it on that. Now let's go into a little bit of these laws. All right, because matter of fact, let me get that precept that the brother quoted in here. Hopefully I'll remember to go back to it, because he wanted to know about this. You know, and this 7 women taking hold of 1 man, this is really dealing with Israelite women, but also the women of the other nations, because they're going to be looking for a strong, you know, and not even just so much as a strong masculine man, you know, basically dealing with a man that they see that can protect them, that nothing is happening to this man. That's what the Lord said, I will make a man more precious than fine gold. Doesn't necessarily mean that this man can bench press 500 pounds, you know, but it's just that the Spirit of the Lord will be upon him, upon that man, and protect him. So they're going to be looking for protection. All right, so it says laws of warfare. So like it for a minute, let me pour a little bit of this not so tasty tea. Nevertheless, it is good. And let me sip a little bit of this water, just Salake, just bear with me. All right. Deuteronomy 21. We're going to read a couple of verses, then we're going to jump around. You can read the whole thing. Deuteronomy 21. When thou goest out to battle against thine enemies. So this is dealing with the other nations. When we go to war against them, and see his horses and chariots and a people more than thou, be not afraid of them, for the Lord thy power is with thee, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. And it shall be, when you are come nigh unto the battle, that the priest shall approach and speak unto the people, and shall say unto them, Hear, O Israel, ye approach this day unto battle against your enemies. Let not your hearts faint, fear not, and do not tremble. neither be ye terrified because of them. For the Lord your power is he that goeth with you to fight for you against your enemies to save you. And this is one of the reasons why King David said that, who will lead me into the strong city? You know, because he know that it's the Lord that the battle belongs to, not how strong you may be. And the officers shall speak unto the people, saying, what man is there? Well, this goes into something else, so you can read that when you get a chance. Boom, boom, boom. Now let's jump to the 10th verse. It says, when thou comest nigh unto a city to fight against it, then proclaim peace unto it. And it shall be, if it make thee answer of peace, and open unto thee, then it shall be that all the people that is found therein shall be tributaries unto thee. And they shall serve thee. Right. These are talking about these heathen nations. That's why the Apostle Paul also said, if at all possible, live peaceably with all men. If they are no threat to you, and they being peaceful with you, be peaceful with them. It says, and if it will make no peace with thee, but will make war against thee, then thou shalt besiege it. And when the Lord thy power have delivered it into thine hands, thou shalt smite every male thereof with the edge of the sword. But the women and the little ones and the cattle and all that is in the city, even all the spoil thereof, shalt thou take unto thyself. So what do you think was going to happen with these women? They're going to be concubines of men, of Israelite men. And Israelite men will have children with these women. So if this was the case, this is who said that? Who said this? Whose laws are these? Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi laws. He says, and when the Lord Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi, thy power, have delivered it into thy hands. This is what you do. But the women, you kill them all, every male, but the women and the little ones and the cattle and all that is in the city, even all the spoil thereof, shalt thou take unto thyself. So what do you think is going to happen with those women? They're going to get popped a couple of times. And some of them are going to have children. And guess what? Those children are Israelites. And thou shalt eat the spoil of thine enemies, which the Lord thy power hath given thee. Thus shalt thou do unto all the cities which are very far off from thee, which are not of the cities of these nations. And that's why the Israelites look like everybody under the sun. And this is why when we go to the book of Revelation, the 7th chapter, the angel messing with Apostle John asked him, who are these that have come from all the nations and tongues, you know? And the Apostle John didn't know what to answer him, because they didn't look like your typical Israelites. He said, thou knowest. And he said, these are they that have come through great tribulation. Because what? These are Israelites that were among all these different nations that went through those tribulations, because the curses are everywhere. Everywhere you have an Israelite, the curses are there. No matter where the Israelites are, no matter what they look like. Because that was what the Lord set up to be upon them. Was these curses. Yep, like the scripture the brother just put. Jeremiah 12:8. Mine heritage is unto me as a lion in the forest. It crieth out against me. Thereof have I hated it. Verse 9. Mine heritage is unto me as a speckled bird. The birds round about are against her. Come ye assemble, all the beasts of the field, come devour. And when you look up that word speckled, one of the definitions is the word variegated. The word variegated was where you get the word variety from, which is an assortment, but also the word variegated means multicolored. All right, and that's what happened to our people. They are multicolored all over the place, but their line goes back to one of the tribes of the nation of Israel, so-called Negro, Latino, Native American Indian. All right. So when we finish, all right, so let's go now to the next law, domestic relations. Now keep in mind what we read in the book of, what was that? Nope, Genesis 25. All right, so we can go back to that when we get to it. Deuteronomy 21:10. When thou goest forth to war against thine enemies, And the Lord YAHAWAH, thy power, have delivered them into thine hands, and thou hast taken them captive. They're in captivity. They're prisoners of war. And seest among the captives a beautiful woman. Meaning what? A heathen woman. She looking good. She's like, you know. And you brothers know when you see some of these women of the other nations, they be looking good. So if you see a beautiful woman and has a desire unto her, meaning you want to rock her world, you know, you want to do the Michael Jackson thing, you know, rock her world. It says that thou wouldest have her to thy wife. See? Now what does that mean? That means to have sex with her, to pop her. She'll be your concubine. How do we know that? When we go back to Genesis 25:1, then again Abraham took a wife because Sarah had died, and her name was Keturah. This was a heathen woman, right? We jump to the 5th verse, and Abraham gave all that he had unto Isaac, but unto the sons of the concubines, plural. So Abraham had what? 3 women. He had Sarah and Hagar. Sarah died, and he took him another woman, Keturah. So concubines means that Keturah and Hagar were the concubines. So when we read here in Deuteronomy 21, when it says that when you take this beautiful woman captive from among the captives and has a desire unto her, that thou wouldest have her to thy wife, meaning to your concubine, your to lie with, to keep you company, to comfort you. You know, when you want her next to you on cold nights and when there's nothing else to do. Inside joke. Then thou shalt bring her home to thine house, and she shall shave her head and pare her nails. Right, because this was something that you would allow them to do, because this was what? A form of mourning. Or it was mourning for her parents that got slain in that war. I shall, which is to do, to fashion. It's the word for pair. All right. It says, and she shall put the raiment of her captivity from off her. Right. Take that off. And shall remain in thine house, and bewail her father and her mother for a full month. And after that thou shalt go in unto her, meaning what? You're going to pop her. And be her husband, and she shall be thy wife, meaning what? This is going to be your concubine. This is going to be your thing, your woman. And it shall be, if thou have no delight in her, then thou shalt let her go whither she will, but thou shalt not sell her at all for money. Thou shalt not make merchandise of her, because thou hast humbled her. You done popped her a couple of times, whether she wanted to or not. And in most cases, when you took a woman captive of another nation, she didn't want you to touch her. You know? But after after you go through the ritual, so to speak, of letting her mourn for her parents 30 days, you kicking in the door and waving the 4-4. And you say, okay, it's time now. And if she resists, you're going to have to, do what you got to do, because the word humbled means to deal hardly with. All right. Let's see where we at with it. Aina. You Aina her. Because she ain't going to want to, I'll just leave it at that, because you know how YouTube gets. So these are laws concerning concubines. These are laws concerning women of other nations that you would get with. These guys are talking about if you have a heathen mother, you're a mamzer. That's total bullshit. A mamzer, or a bastard, is a child that comes from the union of a heathen man and an Israelite woman, like the case of the Egyptian child that was by an Egyptian man and an Israelite woman. I don't remember what tribe she was from. She was, I think she was from the tribe of Dan or one of those tribes. I can't remember exactly. All right. That's a mamzer. Israelite man that has children with a heathen woman, that is not a mamzer or a bastard. So you got to get your information correct. Otherwise, you don't need to be teachers out there, because you're sowing nothing but a bunch of confusion. And this is what happens when you're sowing that confusion. You have individuals asking this because, see, this individual, servants for YAHAWASHI, he obviously is not grounded. Because for him to say, if I could do a video on Isaiah 4:1, will the women be of the other nations, because they're brothers that say it is a sin to have Gentile women for wives or concubines. As we tell you, you have these guys that jump from camp to camp, listening to this camp, listening to that camp, listening to this camp, and they get confused because they're watching everybody. You have a whole lot of jumbled up mumbo jumbo out there from these different camps. You have to, pray to the Lord through the Spirit to guide you to the right camp and stay within that right camp. And Lord willing, he sends you to the right camp. Because if you're jumping around from camp to camp, this is what happens. Confusion. And we've said this many times before, but you still have individuals out there that do it. Because, for the most part, most individuals like to be entertained. You've heard Elder Apostle Tahar, Elder Apostle Gabar, Elder Apostle RAWCHAA, the bishops, other men, myself, we all been saying that you have a lot of Israelites that know that they're Israelites, but they're watching this for entertainment purposes. This is not a joke. This is not, your daily gossip that you go to get your daily dose of the gossip of the Israelites. This is serious business. This is a life or death situation. So it behooves you to pay attention. And it behooves you to hunker down, and get ready embrace for what's coming. Because the storm is coming. The time of Jacob's trouble, as we've been telling you since we been on YouTube and even before that, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahawashi. All right, so let's see what else we got. Let's go to 1 Kings 11:1. But King Solomon loved many strange women. You see, as Nehemiah called them, outlandish women, meaning women of other nations, heathen women, country dwellers. I believe that's what the term heathen meant. I believe an Elder Apostle Tahar went into that years ago. I believe that's country dweller, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, the brother Gabar Yahweh, the apostle, I walked in on my cousin watching for entertainment. Yeah, well, that was the Spirit revealing them to you. But that's all right. Let it be as it is. Ezekiel 33, in full effect. So it says, but King Solomon loved many strange women together with the daughter of Pharaoh, which are the Egyptians, women of Moabites, so-called Chinese, Ammonites, so-called Japanese, Edomites, so-called white women, Zidonians, these are Hamites, Canaanites, and Hittites, more Canaanites. And what happened? Of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, you shall not go in unto them, neither shall they come in unto you. Right. You weren't supposed to cleave to these women, especially not the Canaanites. We weren't supposed to deal with the Canaanites, period. But we could deal with the women of the other nations. We just wasn't supposed to deal with the Canaanite women because they were cursed. The Lord said that because Noah cursed Ham's son, Canaan. All right. It says, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love. And this is what happened. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines. And his wives turned away his heart. You see? So he had 300 concubines. So it wasn't the fact that he had concubines and he was popping them. It's the fact that he fell in love with them and he started to walk in the ways and worship their gods, building shrines unto them. You can read on. It tells you he was building shrines to the gods of the Sidonians and so on and so forth. So it wasn't, he didn't go off because he had popped them. He went off because he started to worship other gods. That's what he went off on. So you could have concubines. And in the kingdom we will have concubines. So Isaiah 4:1, and in that day 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, we will eat our own bread and wear our own apparel. In other words, you don't have to provide anything for us. And the number 7 just simply means completion. All right? Meaning they have all the provisions that they need. You don't have to provide nothing for them. Just protection. Only let us be called by thy name, to take away our reproach, meaning our shame. Why? Because it's going to get very bad out here. And the ones that are going to suffer the most are women. I was watching a video that Elder Yashawama put up about that deer that got fed up with these Edomites. And the little dog tried to attack him, and he kind of hit him with the horn. And the woman tried to she hit the deer, male deer, with her purse, and the deer wanted to get busy on her. He started, ramming her, beating the shit out of her. And her old ass father tried to wrestle the thing, but then the thing paused. I don't know what happened, but it paused. I mean, you could still hear the commotion in the background, but it kind of paused. So pretty much, these animals are getting fed up with these devils. I don't remember why I actually went there, but that just came to mind as we were dealing with this situation. Right, for protection. Only let us be called by thy name, to take away our reproach. So pretty much that's the point. So we can have concubines. We're going to have concubines. What are you talking about, man? Our people can't possibly change phenotypes by having a few heathen concubines or wives, especially not Hamite women. First of all, do you know who Blake Griffin is, or Blake Griffith, or Griffin, or however you say his name, the basketball player? Do you know who Blake Griffin is? I'm asking you, Yashar, rise up. Do you know who Blake Griffin is? I'm asking you. And I'm waiting for your response. Yes. Okay, so what does Blake Griffin look like? We have a picture here of Blake Griffin. Is that not him there? Is that not his father? Is that not his mother? Look how dark his father is. And look how light he came out. Now, let's type in Blake Griffin's son. Now, does that look like a so-called black baby to you? This is just 2 generations. His father had a white woman. He came out looking like this. He has a white woman. His son came out looking like this. Huh? Does that baby look like a black baby to you? Does he have the so-called phenotypes of a so-called black person? He has straight hair. He has blonde hair. He has so-called white skin or red skin. And even among Hamite women, you change. Because Hamites have different looks than Israelites. Just like if you have Moabite women and Ammonite women, women of the other nations, the child is going to come out looking like their mothers. Where did we ever mix with Caucasoids? What about right here? What the fuck do you think this is? What do you think this is? Who did his father and who did they deal with? Who did they mix with? Did they not mix with Caucasoid people? Caucasoid women? Edomite women? Come on, man. Get out of here with that weak sauce, man. Just on that. And there's many examples of this. Many examples of Israelite men dealing with women of the other nations and their children looking like their mothers. All right? So don't come up in here with that crap. You know? Where did we ever mix with Caucasoid women? Wait a minute. Did not King Solomon deal with so-called white women? Psh, come on, man. You're always going to have some kind of scoffer coming and trying to, no, the blackness, no, black. Nothing else, black, okay? We've never changed. We've always been the same color. All throughout slavery, the slave master was having sex with the women, with the so-called black women, the Israelite women, the Judite women. Some of those children were coming out a little lighter, which is what they call mulattoes. And then some of them would get with white women, and their babies come out looking like so-called white people. And in some cases, those sons of the master, which were a little lighter, would get with a so-called slave woman, and their children will come out darker. And this is where you have the tares, which are dark-skinned Edomites. Come on, man. We just read it just now. Must we go back again? Deuteronomy 21:10. When thou goest forth to war against thine enemies, are not the Edomite women, the Edomite men, the Moabite men, the Ammonite men, are not they all, heathens? Huh? Yes or no? Or do we have to go to the scripture to prove it? I'm waiting. Matter of fact, Ezra 4:1. Now when the adversaries of Judah and Benjamin heard that the children of the captivity builded the temple unto the Lord power of Israel, who are these adversaries? These enemies. These are the other nations that came against us. Enemies. Psalms 83. Those are enemies. The Edomites and the Moabites and the Ammonites. And different Hamitic nations. So here in Deuteronomy 21:10, when thou goest forth to war against thine enemies, plural, and the Lord thy God have delivered them into thine hands, and thou hast taken them captive, and seest among the captives a beautiful woman, what? From among these heathen nations, and has a desire unto her. You want to have sex with her. That thou wouldest have her to thy wife, then thou shalt bring her home to thine house, and she shall she shall shave her head and pare her nails, and she shall put the raiment of her captivity from off her, and shall remain in thine house, and bewail her father and her mother 4 months. And after that thou shalt go in unto her, have sex with her, and be her husband, and she shall be thy wife. Come on, man. Come on, man. Let's see. What is that? Just bear with me 1 second. This is gonna. Let's go. This is looking in the book of Judges real quick. We didn't only mix with Hamites. Are you retarded? Are you retarded? Huh? I'm asking, are you retarded? 1 Kings 11:1. But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughters of Pharaoh, which were Egyptians. Those are Hamites. Women of the Moabites. The Moabites are not Hamites. Ammonites. The Ammonites are not Hamites. Edomites. The Edomites are not Hamites. Zidonians and Hittites, which are Hamites. So the Moabites, the Ammonites, and the Edomites are not Hamites. These all came out of the line of Shem. King Solomon was dealing with them. The hell you mean we didn't mix with the other nations? So let me see if I can find this other precept. It's got to be around the 13th chapter, 14th chapter. Let me see. Let me try it this way. Maybe it comes up this way. Nope. It's not it. Okay, just bear with me 1 second. Let's try this here. Let's go to Judges 14. Just bear with me 1 second. Right, so Judges 14:1. And Samson went down to Timnath and saw a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. And he came up and told his father and his mother and said, I have seen a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. Now therefore get her for me to wife. Then his father and his mother said unto him, Is there never a woman among the daughters of thy brethren, or among all my people, that thou goest to take a wife of the uncircumcised Philistines? And Samson said unto his father, Get her for me, for she pleaseth me well. But his father and his mother knew not that it was of the Lord, that he sought an occasion against the Philistines, for all that time the Philistines had dominion over Israel. This is just one example. We just read about King Solomon and the different women that he had from the different nations. Come on, man. Let me see. Right, and then when we read in the law, when it spoke about the enemies, it's talking about all of these nations that were our enemies, that we could take women of their nation and make them concubines. Bottom line. But you know what? As the Spirit had me say at the beginning of this lesson, you still have those individuals that know that they're Israelites and still, know that they're Israelites. They read the Bible, but then they still have the Western Edomite mentality when it comes to the scriptures. They still have that demonic Edomite spirit ingrained in them, when it comes to the scriptures. Right. In the case of Ezra, the 10th chapter, 9th and the 10th chapter, those children that were sent away were children that were from another marriage. Because Israelite children, will not be sent away. Because if that was the case, then the sons of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh, would have been sent away. Because they were from a woman of another nation. And then let's go to just bear with me 1 second. Just bear with me 1 second. Let me go back. Just bear with me 1 second. All right, now let's go back to 1 Kings 14. Let's go here to 1 Kings 14. Because he said that, the children, the Ammonite children that the Israelites laid down with, they were sent away. Let's go to 1 Kings. I believe that was 1 Kings, right? Was that 1 Kings? Yep. There was a reason why those children were sent away, because they were not Israelite children. First Kings. First Kings 14, 22. No, it doesn't say that. Let's try this. All right. Let's go to the 21st verse. It says, 1 Kings 14:21. And Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, reigned in Judah. He reigned in Judah, right? Rehoboam was 41 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city which the Lord did choose out of all the tribes of Israel, to put his name there. And his mother's name was Naamah, an Ammonitess. So how come the Lord didn't say, you know what, Solomon, you can't have, Rehoboam to rule? Because his mother's an Ammonite. So he can't rule, so you got to put him away. No. So you err not knowing the scriptures. The reason why those children were put away, because they were not the children of those men. You had women that had already lain with other men, and they came into the marriage with baggage. What the hell are you talking about? Where the hell are all these demons coming from? Having a child with a heathen wife wouldn't change the phenotype of a whole tribe. Nobody said that. What the hell? What do you listen with, your ass or your ears? When did we ever say that the whole tribe is going to be changed? The whole phenotype of a tribe is going to be changed by dealing with heathen women. When did we say that? I use one example. Blake Griffin. His father was very dark. A so-called Haitian. Let's go back. In case you missed it. Because some of you guys are thick. This is his father. Let me make this a little bigger in case you can't see. Look at how dark his father is. Look at his mother. Look at how light he came out. He got with a white woman, right? And look at what his child looks like. Changed the whole phenotype. If you looked at this little boy, you would call him the devil. You would say you're an Edomite. The Mexicans are Israelites. But why are you changing the subject? Having a child, the guy said having a child with a heathen wife wouldn't change the phenotype of a whole tribe. We didn't say that. We never said that it would change the phenotype of a whole tribe. But look at this. This is just one example out of many. This little boy here does not look like your typical Israelite. And this is what's going out throughout all the world. Now, if this little boy was to lay down with another white woman, guess what? That baby would even look even whiter. So-called whiter. And this is damn near as white as you can get. So-called white as you can get. Because look at his hair. He got blonde hair, stringy blonde hair. His skin is very light. And you have a lot of these Israelites around the world looking like this, looking like Ammonites, Moabites, other nations. Because our people mixed with all these different nations. This is why the Apostle John didn't recognize all of those people that were saved in the book of Revelation, the 7th chapter. Revelation, the 7th chapter, when we read that, Revelation 7 and 9. After this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude, which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues. Now, were they actually other nations? No. They were Israelites that were scattered among these nations. Stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with robes and palms in their hands, and cried with a loud voice, saying, Salvation to our power, which sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb. And all the angels stood round about the throne, and about the elders and the four beasts, and fell before the throne of their fathers, before the thrones on their faces, and worshipped the Most High, saying, Amen. Blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might be unto our power forever and ever. Amen. Then it goes on to say, And one of the elders answered, saying unto me, What are these which are arrayed in white robes? These are they from different nations, right? From nations and kindreds and people and tongue, which are what? Israelites scattered among these nations. And whence came they? He's asking them, who are they? Where did they come from? And I said unto him, Sir, thou knowest. Now, why did he give that answer? Because obviously they didn't look like your typical Israelites. You have Israelites all over the planet looking like different nations. But then you have your typical looking Israelites, which had so-called Negro features. And the rest of the tribes. You guys just don't know the scriptures. You've been bamboozled. All right. So with that, I'm going to leave it there because, this is a very good scripture that the brother put up. Hosea 7 and 8. Ephraim, he hath mixed himself among the people. Ephraim is a cake not turned. If you take a pancake or if you take a unleavened bread and you put it into a hot oven and you slap it down on one side and you pull it out real quick, and you don't flip it to cook the other side, one side is going to be very dark, the other side is going to be very light. Hence the scripture in Jeremiah 12, my heritage is unto me as a speckled bird. Different colors. 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 So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. Until the next time I say shalom. And I want to give a special shout out to you scoffers. Thank you, because you make this interesting. Shalom to the elect and deaf to the rest of yous. Shalom.